So it's been a while since this name has passed my lips on this channel. And, you know, despite not really talking about Teal Swan very much on my channel lately, what she's doing, I've been aware of it, I've been watching it, and pretty much every video I've put out has taken what she's saying and doing into account in some way. You know, she's still at it. She's not stopped. I still believe it's a cult. That hasn't changed. And there are a number of reasons I did stop talking about her on the channel. And I'll talk about that in the future at some point. This isn't me starting up talking about her again consistently, but as I say, I've been watching what she's been doing, and I checked out her Twitter feed recently and found that she's written a blog post called Forecast for 2020. And I couldn't resist. What can I say? I read a little bit of it and I was like, there's a video in this. Like, this is a video, right? And so I put it out on Twitter and you guys said, yeah, make the video. So here I am. Without further ado, let's dive into what promises to be a precarious balance between cult indoctrination and the vagaries of, the vagaries we're used to seeing in things like horoscopes and stuff. Let's dive in. It is written in an old Hindu scripture, "He who sees all beings in his own self and his own self in all beings loses fear." It is my personal request, she's making personal requests now, that you hold to this concept like a pillar and model your mentality around it in the upcoming year. So really, let's dispense with all this uniqueness. Let's dispense with all of this being your own person and everything. Let's see everything as one thing, right? Maybe I'm reading a bit too much into that initially. Let's see if that's what she's saying. That's a real sentence, isn't it? To be honest with you, this particular yearly New Year's forecast is one that I've been troubled about writing for the last several years. You can just see, can you imagine, right? The sun sets on 2017 and Teal's sitting there writing the 2018 forecast, and she's just got this look on her face and she's like, And Blake comes into the room and she's like, "Tealy, is everything okay? You seem troubled." And she's like, "Blakey, if I'm honest with you, I'm happy with this year's forecast, but I'm just really troubled about the 2020 forecast that I'm going to write in several years." Oh dear. What? I can't imagine that. Can you imagine that happened? I don't imagine that happened. Some really strange stuff goes on in that house, guaranteed, but I just can't imagine that happening. Anyway, I find myself walking a delicate line between causing you to feel fear about 2020 and instead making you aware of the reality of 2020 in a way where you can embrace your fear and see 2020 objectively enough to feel some sense of welcome for it spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. It sounds like you're trying to make people scared of 2020, and then you're going to position yourself and your processes and your blah-de-blah as a fix for that, right? I mean, this is marketing, right? Agitate the pain, offer the solution. It sounds like that's what's happening here. Let's see if that's what's happening here. The next sentence in bold says, "Fear is a central theme that all people on Earth will grapple with in 2020. I mean, obviously, yeah. As you already know, a major evolutionary shift in humanity has been well underway for many years. But shifts and transformations are not an overnight thing, and they are not the warm, expansive, fuzzy feeling things that many people imagine when they hear the word shift or transformation. A shift is change. Change is something that usually implies resistance. So let's just roll back a second. Again, what's happening here, and this is quite common in what you see from Teal, what she seems to be doing is she seems to be trying to acclimatize people to pain, to things being difficult, to things seeming like they're not working, and then encouraging people to see them as if that means they are working. Does that make sense? Like, things are bad, things are difficult, things aren't warm, expansive, and fuzzy feeling, but that means it's working, right? It would never be because the processes aren't working. It would never be because you're now in a very difficult situation and your mental health is nosediving. It's because it's working, right? I mean, that's quite, just pick my ear out while I'm talking to you. Yeah, that's quite common. I see that a lot, and I experienced that as well when I was following her. She will attempt to desensitize you to the negative sides of things, so that when her processes don't work and things feel bad and things feel terrible, well, hey, look, that means it's working, right? I'm sorry about the background noise, by the way. There's not much I can do about that. So a shift is change. Change is something that usually implies resistance. Of course, what you resist persists. So don't resist things, just go along with everything. In 2020, this resistance rises to a head or a peak. Just pick one. Just pick a head, or just pick one metaphor or whatever and stick with it. Instead of write about the antidote to fear, there's a lot of real sentences in this blog post, I tell you that. Instead of write about the antidote to fear as a part of this already lengthy forecast, I will tell you that an entire section, I love the way she's written, I will tell you, like, you're being let in on a secret there. I'll tell you that an entire section of the book I wrote in anticipation of this year, titled The Anatomy of Loneliness, is about fear specifically. So again, there's a few things to unpack there, right? Apparently she's written her book, The Anatomy of Loneliness, specifically for 2020. I don't know if that is in the book. Let's see. Anyone who's got that book, please check the book and see if it says that it was written in anticipation of 2020, because I'm not convinced that that's the case. If it is, fair enough, but if it's not, And again, yeah, we're what 2 paragraphs into this and she's plugging a book already. I mean, don't wait around, love, with your soft sell. Christ. Many of you have begun to lose faith in humanity in the recent years as the intensity of this shift has built to the point where it feels like the people and the world around you has lost its mind. I mean, let's be fair. Yeah, many people have found it difficult to have faith in humanity. I don't know if we've lost our faith in humanity. That might be a bit extreme, but yeah, a lot of us have felt it difficult to see things in a positive way given recent developments. Climate change, the political situation in a lot of countries right now, But that's not new. I mean, let's be honest. The climate change situation is a real issue, and we shouldn't be treating it like it's just another issue, right? But generally speaking, political turmoil, that's not new. Narcissists in power, terrible political choices for the benefit of a handful of people, that's not new. That's really not new. Just watch any history documentary going back as far as you want to. It's not new. Anyway, I don't know why I'm saying new like that. New. I normally say it like new, and it's coming out like new today. It's got a little wiggle on the top of the end. But hold your horses here, because Teal's got some insight on this situation. This happens when humanity reaches a crossroads where it must change totally. So she's got some insight there that no one else has got. What a surprise. A threshold has been crossed. Sorry, Tam, didn't mean to elbow you there, mate. Didn't know you were there, to be honest. Just such a similar colour to the bed covers. 2020 is a turning point. This change is being forced by first exposing all the shadowy aspects. Who's it being forced by? What's being forced? Who's doing this? What's happening here? It's first been forced by exposing all the shadowy aspects that have been operating behind the scenes all along. So some shadowy aspects, and it has and will continue to shock you to see them in plain view. The old, what's not working, just to clarify, that's what old means, because apparently that's what old means, right? The old, what's not working, must and will fall away and be replaced by the new. The new. 2020 is a precipice year, right? Hold your horses. There may be times this year when you feel like you're going to fall off the edge, but don't worry, that's just the year. It's just what the year's going to be like. It is a crossroads. between the way it has been and the way it will be. Well, I mean, that's every year, right? That's every single year. Every single year is a crossroads between the way it was and the way it will be. Like, that's just every moment. Every moment is a crossroads between the way it was and the way it will be. I mean, come on. It's just how life is. It's just it's what existence is. It's making it sound like it's something that it's not, making it sound like it's a big deal. Not just on a personal level, but also on a global level. Right, so, okay, let's be fair. Let's be fair about something. With regards to climate change, with regards to the political situation that I mentioned before, things do need to change. And it's everyone's hope, I think, to a lesser or greater extent, that something is going to change this year. Whatever that change will be based on which demographic you're a part of, obviously. But I feel like, yeah, we're all gonna want something to change this year. But again, you could say the same of last year. You could say the same of next year. I don't think it's ever been more important with regards to climate change that something changes as soon as possible. But again, I could have written that. You don't need magic powers. You don't need to be like super insightful to have come up with that. But again, it's a very different thing to sit here and say, I hope that that's the case, to sit here and say that is the case, you know. How do you know? Anyway, and a crossroads divides us. It puts us in a state of opposition. Bit of a tealism there. A state of opposition. It divides us internally on a personal level, and it divides us with others. What does that sentence mean? It divides us internally on a personal level. Are there ways for us to be divided internally that aren't personal, and also divides us with others? Does that mean divides us separates us from others, makes us feel divided among ourselves? Like, I'm finding it hard to understand what's being said here, let alone like what's like whether it's nonsense or not. Like, obviously that's nonsense on a grammatical level, but yeah, anyway, let's keep going. Let's look for the real juicy bits, because I'm sure there will be some. But there are parts of us that want to go left and parts of us that want to go right. There are those of us who fight for the way things are and have been, and there are those of us who fight for a new way of existing. I mean, again, duh, yes, obviously. This year will be a year of battle, right? We're priming people now, are we? We're priming people. We're making people prepare for the battle that I think is happening, right? Just set them up for that. Just make them expect it. You know, just set up that confirmation bias. Why not? Why the hell not? A battle of the sexes, a battle of the races, a battle of creeds, a battle of politics, a battle of self versus other, us versus them, and a year of protest regarding change. Again, I mean, look for it and you'll find it. Is it going to be more likely this year? Maybe. Is that much of a prediction? No, it's vague. It is vague beyond vague. Like, I mean, it's so vague, it could be right if it was actually a little bit more specific, probably. That you've probably got a bit more wiggle room there, but maybe she'll go on. Let's see. Let's see if she gets more vague or less vague as we go on. Tam, please don't do that. I'm trying to make a video. Come and say hello. Say hello. Tam, look at the camera. There's an audience for you now. You always want an audience. No? Okay. Right, well, you just stare longingly at the floor. But you want to come back. So what are we doing here? Can I make the video? Can I make the video? Okay, let me make the video. You just be there. I'm going to make the video. The frequency pattern in the world is in 2020 is similar to the pattern in the year 532 and 629. And making a huge jump, so maybe you can relate to it better, because let's be honest, Teal can definitely relate to the year 532 or 629 better than the rest of us can. Tell me, you purring into the microphone there. So let's make a huge jump so people can relate to it better, because we can all relate to the year 1834 better than we can relate to the year 532. Because, I mean, the year 1834, 1898, and 1914, and 1966, and 2001. Do you know what? Can I just say? What this looks like, and I'll be honest, I could be completely wrong here. Teal may be a history buff. She may know a lot more about history than anyone else. She may be the most qualified person to talk about history in the world. Uniquely qualified, one might say. But this to me, and this is pure conjecture, but this to me looks like she's gone, the year, what was the year something bad happened? 1834, right, I'll write that in. When was another year something else bad happened? I don't know what happened in these years. Maybe something bad did happen in these years. We're gonna look it up. There's probably one in there that nothing bad happened in, just so it's a bit more mysterious. And then she went, what year did World War I start? I'm not sure. Let me Google that. Okay. It's like that kind of, I know more than you. I've got special powers, so I know about frequency patterns in years. Who knew that was the case? Who knew that was even a thing? Let's be honest. Anyway. To understand the kinds of things this frequency gives rise to, another Tealism, you can review what happened during those years. You can just Google them like I did, probably. It is a frequency that causes societal system shake-ups and dredges societal issues to the surface. Okay, fine. I mean, just make your claims. It is a frequency that creates major world events that tend to make history. Can I just say there was no mention of World War II in any of those? Like the year that Poland was invaded. I would put that on there, of a list of like big things that happened, like, because that was something, right? Because that kicked the whole thing off to a larger extent. I mean, that was a pretty big year. VE Day, pretty big year. Could have put them on there as well. Maybe didn't want to be too obvious. Yeah, probably didn't want to be too obvious. People tend to look back on these years with a sense that they marked an end of an era. Okay. It is a potent... Okay, so no, maybe that makes sense. Then you wouldn't put World War II on there if it marks the end of an era, because it did and it didn't. Like, the era itself was World War II. 1914 definitely marked the end of an era. No, but then, again, like, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they marked the end of an era. That could have gone on there. Yeah, definitely could have gone on there. It is a potent, wild, and volatile frequency full of both gravity and tension. Consider it a crisis in collective consciousness. Okay, and that's bold there as well. I'll be honest with you, I can't see frequencies. I can't see frequency patterns in years. So maybe, the World War II years were different frequencies. Maybe they're different frequency. Maybe that's what's happening here. Maybe it didn't happen. Maybe it was a Mandela effect. Maybe it just happened in a different timeline. It's not that this frequency that is present in 2020 specifically causes negative things to happen. It's that it causes... Why am I finding this so hard to read? Is this my reading skill that's gone down the toilet, or is it just terribly written? Could be either. It is that it causes things to happen that create a new chapter for humanity. This pattern causes the re-establishing of what defines a thing and how that thing operates. That's a suspicious sentence to put in bold, I'll be honest with you, and it almost seems like it's trying to send a subtle message, or it's a particularly important message for the readers of this to take on. Why would it be important for the reader of this, a follower of Teal, to come to the conclusion that this year is an important year for what defines a thing and how a thing operates is to be re-established? I wonder why that would be important. This includes cultures and societies. It is a redefining of or restructuring of our lives and society and world. The year 2020 will be a year of intense progression for technology, sciences, world trade, travel, air, and space advancement, as well as the move from fossil fuels and patriarchy. Okay, as a move away from fossil fuels and patriarchy. Okay, so again, right, that's kind of what we're all thinking. First of all, what year isn't a year where technology and science and world trade and travel and air and so on and so forth move forward? Like, progress is exponential, especially with regards to technology. It does happen, right? I'm assuming she hasn't got magic powers and can't just tell this all because of them. I mean, does she have magic powers, or am I barking up the wrong tree here with just assuming that she's making vague claims and has seen a video NASA put out? Move away from fossil fuels. Again, we're going to need to do that pretty soon because of climate change and patriarchy. Oh, scoring points with the feminists. There we go. Nice one, Teal. Tick. During times like this, opposing systems and beliefs clash. Obviously, it creates both national and international crisis and conflicts that often have lasting traumatic consequences, as well as lasting positive changes that redefine human life. You've basically said the same thing like 3 or 4 times at this stage. Like, you've just said it and then said it again in different words and then said it again in different words with greater or lesser vague ideas just shoved in there for colour, right? Which is why this pattern leads to events that get into history books. So that's just a whole ramble on something that makes no sense and doesn't really... It's just some random pseudoscientific stuff, if it even gets to the point of pseudoscience, right? That's probably just going to make the Tealers feel like they know something. But it's nothing. That's just nothing. She's just said frequency, blah, 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 blah. Therefore, what I think. 2020 is a catapult for a revolutionary decade. Therefore, it is a time to remember that we are all in this together. Okay, fair enough. Not a bad message. Also, can I just say, 2020 is a catapult for a revolutionary decade. If it's not, we're all dead, pretty much. Like, if we keep going the way that we have been, that's it. Done. End of humanity. So it's got to be, right? That's a pretty safe thing to say, I've got to say. The dominant theme of the year 2020 is redefine. So she's picked that one. That's the year. The year of redefinition. Okay. She kind of already said that, but we'll go on. Across the board, it will be a year where the intensity of conflict is turned up to the boiling point, so that individuals and societies must decide who they are and what they stand for and what role they want to play across history, the now and the future. I'm not saying that none of this is a consequence of Teal's profound insight, but what I am saying is anyone could have written this without Teal's profound insight. Make of that what you will. This will cause a major redistribution of power. It will cause people and companies and cultures and societies and everything in between to redefine themselves. Teal never... Oh no, she does... there is a comma there. She's just not that big on using commas. Okay. The scene that comes to mind to represent the energy of 2020 is the freedom scene in Braveheart. That's like such a, first of all, archaic reference. And I've heard... I think Jennings Brown mentioned that her references do tend to be kind of archaic. A little bit old now, that reference, let's be honest. And kind of a generic, like, kind of an easy one there. Braveheart, though, is written lowercase. It's not the name of anything, it's just Braveheart. Where he's facing the army with his face is painted blue. I'm not going to pick apart a grammar at every turn. We all make mistakes. I'll give you that one, right? So the scene in Braveheart where he's facing the army, you might as well have just written the bit where he goes, freedom! Anyway, so he's standing there, face painted blue, speaking to them about why they're about to fight a war that they'll most likely lose for the sake of what they stand for and what defines them. Okay, right, fine. So are we? How close is that parallel running here? Like, are we saying that we're most likely going to lose this war that we're fighting this year, or not? Is this just like the martyrdom, the value of martyrdom here that we're talking about? I don't know, but it's kind of, I mean, it's an easy thing to draw, but also, does it work? I don't know. The collective consciousness of the universe itself. Oh, we're getting into spacey now. And humanity is a fragment of the greater universe. Throwaway line, didn't really say anything. Is in the middle of creating integration between self and other, individual and collective. So, don't be an individual, just be part of a whole. Fine. Not culty at all. These concepts have been at odds, but this conflict is slated to end. Slated to end, as if there's actually a plan, as if someone's actually planning this, and she's privy to those plans, and like she's like been sitting in on the meeting or whatever. Oh, sorry, I forgot. She's an Arcturian being who's part of some kind of whatever to fix everything. This means you will be facing the task of defining yourself while integrating what is other. This is the phase within humanity to learn how to have yourself and have others too at the very same time. Well, that makes a whole lot of sense, doesn't it? That's really useful, tangible, practical advice. Like, let's just go, just this year, have yourself and have others at the same time. Can you do that for me? What the fuck does that mean? What the fuck does that mean? This year, you will be redefining yourself. Oh, again, right? So this is kind of, are we looking here at like redoing personality? Are we? Are we getting into a completion process pitch? That picture makes me think we are. We'll see. Very culty though. Redefine yourself, cult personality, cult appropriate identity. Let's see what happens. Defining oneself is a process of individuation. Great word, fantastic use of that word. It is a phase in which you answer the questions, who am I? What do I stand for? What is my truth? Because truth is obviously subjective and there's no consensus on that one. Do other people define me? How do I keep myself when I'm in a relationship with another person or within a group? Will you establish a sense of loyalty to yourself and as such make no more compromises? Oh no, you will establish a sense of loyalty to yourself and as a consequence. Okay. So all of that kind of stuff is basically Teal's thing, right? So she's saying this year it's really important that you follow me and listen to what I have to say because these are the things I talk about, right? These are the things in my books, in my videos. So great, right? 2020 is, it's my year. But is this whole thing not just new year, new me? You will establish a sense of loyalty to yourself and as such make no more compromises. Okay, very interesting message there, of course, because we should be uncompromising in our belief and our following of a leader. Doesn't matter what anyone else says. Be loyal to yourself. Be loyal to Teal. Listen to what Teal has to say. Follow Teal's terrible advice, even if it makes you feel bad, because remember, progress hurts. This is an area where your fear will arise. A central element of the fear in 2020 will be the fear about relationship. Fear is the pushing away of that which you do not want to include as a part of yourself. Again, casual redefinition of a word we're all familiar with. Apparently fear is pushing away what you don't want to be part of you. Pushing away things that you don't want as part of you. This is the thing, just random confusing phrases thrown in there. So people are like, what does this make sense? This doesn't make sense. What does it mean? What does it mean? And then there's a sentence that does make sense. You latch onto that and then that sticks in your head. And that sentence guaranteed is going to be something that's just unuseful and probably just creates a greater dependency on Teal. Let's see. Fear is at its core the opposite of love. That is kind of a generic new ageism, right? Fear and love, you have to choose between the two. There's that duality. So fear causes you to individuate, but unconsciously and out of pure resistance. Again, you could kind of grab that, but again, it's also pointing at the unconscious, right? You don't know, but I know. So I know more about you than you know about yourself. The good and the bad news is, double whammy, good and bad news, all at the same time, wrapped up in a nice, obviously not confusing or convoluted bundle, whatever. I said what I said. The good and bad news is that this largely unconscious individuation process will inevitably lead to the integrating factor between self and other. Good news then, I guess. Good news from Teal here. The awareness that one will inevitably arise at inside out words. Just speak English. The awareness that one will inevitably arise at where their personal truth and what they personally value and what they personally stand for is unity. She basically just wanted to say, you'll realize that what you really want is to be part of something bigger than yourself. Unity, whatever unity means, right? Where you don't exist anymore and you're part of a whole. You have no individual, not culty at all. This is where, ironically, the battle becomes the battle to end the battle. Oh my fucking God. Talk about word salad. Christ. This is where relationship becomes a conscious choice. Love becomes a conscious choice. What the fuck has that got to do with anything that you've just said? This is the ultimate word salad. We are wading through word salad. Our welly boots are covered in word salad mayonnaise at this point. This awareness will happen to some people in much harsher ways than others, depending on their level of resistance to integration. The truth that has already been accepted at an objective level within the universe, and that humanity must catch up to, is that we can't keep opposing each other. We must end the zero-sum game. Again, making a claim. Can you back that one up, Teal? Can you prove that the universe has accepted this truth on an objective level? And presumably the truth is something that the universe has to accept on an objective level in order for it to become an objective truth and not a subjective truth. Is that what's happening here? To understand more about this, watch my video. Oh, okay, so a little video plug there. That's why she mentioned zero-sum game. Watch her video zero-sum, then you'll understand. Or just come out more confused with more things that sound true but actually aren't. And a little bit more conviction that you're right about everything. In fact, our survival as a species now depends on it. The decision has been made to heal the division. By who? Where? So much of this is fucking nonsense now. We've gotten to the point where she's just saying shit. She's just saying shit. None of this is based on anything anymore. Sadly, much more division will occur for all people to arrive at a mental and emotional place of consciously choosing no more division. Oh, okay, now she's touching on the suicide crisis. The suicide crisis will rise. The opioid crisis will rise. The loneliness has not yet reached its peak because many people do not recognize it as the crisis of the human race. But don't worry, read my book, The Anatomy of Loneliness. It'll all make sense. It is, like I often say, many people need to whack a tree at 70 miles an hour in order to awaken. In a car, or like just run at it, or like punch it at, like what are you saying? The awareness and decision of integration within the greater universe is a tsunami. This is making my head hurt. This is just drivel. What is this? What is the point of this? How can someone read this and go, yeah, that's true? It's fucking nonsense. This is... I feel like I'm losing brain cells reading this. If in response to your fear, you try to oppose that tsunami of change by getting controlling and rigid and sticking to what you know and being set in your ways and holding to what was and what is familiar, you will get hit by it. So don't hold on to anything that you think is important, anything that you're used to, anything that you value. Just drop that, because Teal's got some ideas. And in case you don't already know, a tsunami travels at the speed of a jet aircraft. In case you didn't already know, people, I know this because, tapped into the Akashic Records and all the rest of it. Definitely didn't Google it. You will not succeed at outrunning or fighting against it. So just give in, just accept, just let go of everything that you think is important and listen to me. Listen to what I think, right? I mean, the question to ask yourself is, what role do you want to play in the new structure? Could I be a recruiter in the new structure? Or perhaps I could be a healer, I could be an energy healer, or I could be, I could volunteer at your workshops. That would be nice. This redefining can feel like the owning of a new form or a new life, and as such, labour pains will accompany the transition. Pregnancy metaphor. Don't mind if I do. There is nothing easy about the frequency of 2020. Again, progress hurts. Don't worry too much though, because Teal's got a solution to that. But it will hurt all the way through. Progress hurts, people. It's not going to get easier. It's not going to get easy. Things are going to get harder. And you need to get used to that. You just need to get used to it. Things are going to be hard. Don't worry about things being easy. They're not going to be easy anymore. Just forget about that. Let go of that idea. It's misguided at this point. Things are going to be hard, but Teal's going to help you. Teal's going to help. It's going to be hard though. Never forget, it's going to be hard. Society will be directly confronted with what needs to change about society. You will be directly confronted with what needs to change about you. You sit in front of Teal at a workshop and she's going to tell you what she thinks needs to change about you, and she's going to beat you down until you accept her point of view. This opposition can lead to a sense of thwarted motivation and feeling fed up. Feeling fed up will cause many people to dive even deeper into spiritual practice or give it up altogether. That's kind of what happened to me, really. Just got fed up with it, going around in circles. Empty promises and the selling of rainbows ad nauseum. Just want to be clear though, if you're into spiritual stuff, be into spiritual stuff. Not my problem, not my monkey, not my zoo. Believe what you want to believe. If you're in a cult though, different issue. But many people will do so with the attitude of escape. It is critical that spiritual practice is not used as an escape hatch from life itself. Instead, it should be used as a means of getting more clear and gaining more resources, specifically in order to focus much more powerfully, effectively, and fully into your temporal physical life. In 2020, in order to redefine yourself, you must decondition yourself from patterns that no longer serve you or the world you live in. You redefine yourself so as to give yourself new meaning. You reevaluate your values and priorities, and from there, take action to build your life around those core values. This means you must heal from your past and the no longer beneficial ways that your past made you adapt. You must redefine reality. Everything that causes you to feel oriented and stable in the truth of reality may very well be thrown out the window. Therefore, the way to approach 2020 is with curiosity and flexibility. That is basically priming people for, is it Edgar Schein's 3 steps? It used to be the case with shadow work. It's probably going to be like a completion process plug at some point here. If it's not, I'll be surprised. But these are dog whistles, right? For do the work, right? Do the process. You're gonna be unfrozen. You're gonna be changed. You're gonna be refrozen. And so what she's saying here really is basically nothing is sacred here. Nothing here can be kept. You don't just forget about everything. It could very well be, everything that causes you to feel oriented and stable in the truth of reality may very well be thrown out the window. Like, just get rid of everything that you hold dear, everything about yourself that you like, everything that works for you, because we're going to redefine you. We're going to redo you. I'm going on a limb here, but saying we're going to redo you in a cult appropriate way. We're going to redo you in a way that fits with Teal's map of reality here. You must be willing to let go of what you think you know. You must be willing to let go of the old and consider completely new perspectives and ways of doing things. This is a really good year to practice the art of going back to the drawing board. People are reading this and they're thinking, it's good. People are reading this and they're taking it on. It's baffling for me. Like, there's nothing wrong with figuring yourself out and, making a few changes here and there. But you got to decide that. You got to do that for yourself. Some random on the internet who's got some strong ideas shouldn't be telling you what to do. And especially when things are the way that they are. And really, she isn't just a random on the internet. She's someone who has got some incredible influence over some really, really vulnerable people here. It is a year for redefining what you need to cultivate in your life and what you need to let go of. It is a year to realign with your deepest desires and needs and values. Okay, how do we get to those deepest desires and needs and values? Who tells us where we find out what those are? Who tells us what those look like? How do we figure out those things? By reassessing and realigning with your deepest desires, needs, and values, what will happen is you will find your own inner authority. Okay, I'm not against that in principle, but how do we know what an inner authority looks like? How do we determine that? Who's going to tell us what that looks like? Who's going to tell us what that sounds like? Who's going to tell us how to find that? You will be stepping into the energy of holding a relationship with the things you commit to having a relationship with, but with a sense of agency. You're choosing who you have a relationship with and what you have a relationship with. You're doing that with a sense of agency. In perfect harmony with this expansion, a dominant theme for 2020 is truth versus lies. Very interesting. Very interesting. I think we're going to get some follow-ups on this. I think this is going to feed into video material for her in the year. So yeah, stay tuned, folks. This will be a theme on the individual level and at a societal level. Obviously, everything that you're saying here is on an individual level and a societal level and on a global level and becoming aware of what is true and what is false forces us to readjust. And there is only one truth, the one true truth that is your personal truth. It's actually the objective truth that I'm telling you that the universe has agreed on, that is the law of attraction, that is oneness, that is my particular map of reality, my little way of making you do everything that I think works, even if it hurts you. And if it hurts you, that means it's working. Again, this forces flexibility. Be flexible, don't hold fast, be as flexible as possible. For all of these reasons above, AI, R is the element, air. Oh, okay, it's not an acronym, it's just the word air. Air in capitals is the element to master for 2020, apparently. Let's have some drink. My diet is not spiritual at all. I got gummy worms and a can of sugar-free Coke. Well, at least it's not sugar, because sugar is the lowest vibration in food, right? Sticky fingers. That's what they used to call me on the ranch. Old sticky fingers. That was filthier than I intended it to be. The various power dynamics in your own life will be forced to the forefront of your awareness so that you can examine and shift them. By shifting them, you'll be able to cultivate new and actual strength. Of course, strength here will probably be redefined, and Teal is her version of strength, but let's hope that does happen. Let's hope people do evaluate the power structures in their life. Let's hope they do recognize a little bit that maybe that they're following someone who perhaps doesn't deserve to be followed, that they're listening to the advice of someone who is woefully underqualified to be giving such advice. They're listening to someone who's offering vague and very easy predictions about the future, which are pretty much no-duh situations. As we redefine ourselves, we will find ourselves becoming aware of a responsibility crisis that being experienced in the world by ourselves, other people, governments, and whole societies, for example. Very interesting, Teal, that you're talking about a responsibility crisis, given how many irresponsible things you've done and continue to do, unapologetically, in my opinion. Part of redefining ourselves is to clearly define what is and what isn't our responsibility. Okay, so we can wash our hands of those pesky people who have chosen to take their own lives. I'm going to bleep that out because of monetization, but I think you all know what I mean. We're just gonna wash our hands. You know, we need to clearly define what is our responsibility and what isn't. Teal tribe, not my responsibility. The things that people do as a consequence of my unqualified and terrible advice, not my responsibility. Educating myself on the right kind of advice to give and the right way to give advice, and perhaps the more responsible thing to do in general when one puts themselves in a position of social power, not my responsibility. No, just be really clear about that. We don't want to fall into any traps there. We don't want to be taking responsibility for things that maybe we shouldn't be. Taking genuine responsibility in our lives and acting accordingly is a necessity, apparently. As for the earth itself, or the dirt, what we're talking about here, as a planet as a whole, I guess. It is also entering the process of redefining itself. I'm sorry for anyone here that hates the sound of like chewing. Bit of ASMR there for you. This is really good. Really good gummy worm. As for the earth itself, it is also entering the process of redefining itself. You can use the powers of your own mind to imagine what it means for the earth to redefine itself. I'll leave that one to you. You guys can, here's a colouring book. You colour in what you think the world looks like when it redefines itself. What the fuck? The frequency of 2020 will lend itself to some earthquakes, and even more than that, to floods, capital letters, bold letters there, floods. Well, again, no shit. I mean, obviously, and it is getting worse. Climate change. This is not news. If you are in an area that is prone to or at risk of flooding, make sure you have insurance for floods, as that is showing up as the most dominant disaster of the coming year. Oh my God, this is a regular horoscope, isn't it? She's basically just sitting there with a crystal ball, making really vague predictions. Holy Kool-Aid did a video on the psychic twins that they basically did the same thing. Theirs was actually a little bit more specific, equally nonsensical. Yeah, ridiculous. Come on, Teal, you can do better than this. You can do better than this. I mean, I would hope that for someone as esteemed and as wise and as insightful as Teal, she could pull out something a little bit more precise as a prediction for the year. Consider having a plan for both as a part of your commitment to take genuine responsibility. Okay, right. Teal is not in a position to be schooling people on taking responsibility for things. Consider the source, people. Consider the source. What are we witnessing here? This is... Your blind spot is vast, Teal. Consistent with the theme of fear, inflammation is a malady facing all people's general physical well-being in 2020, as it is every year. Anything you can do on top of facing and integrating your fear in order to decrease inflammation is going to benefit you in 2020, of course, because everything physical is a consequence of the spiritual, so reduce the fear because emotions are spiritual. Something like that, right? I mean, that's vaguely it. It is a year to take anti-inflammatory actions. For example, support your body with an anti-inflammatory diet, exercise, get enough sleep, dehydrate, and de-stress in whatever ways work best for you. Hopefully, this anti-inflammatory nature will stop her saying inflammatory things that get people into worse situations. Hopefully, she's going to take her own advice there. 2020 is also a major year of collective karmic return. Cause and effect becomes much more obvious. Those who have sown flowers will see the positive returns of having done so, and those who have sown weeds... Who sows weeds? No one sows weeds. Weeds just grow. The point of weeds is that they grow. They just grow. No one plants them. Okay, so there may be some plants that are considered weeds by some people and not by others. But no one sows weeds. Think. Those who have sown weeds will see the negative return of having done so. In 2020, the reality that what goes around comes around is like a truth that the universe itself is intent to make all aspects of itself aware of. I don't know what that means. It reminds me of a Clairo song. And humanity is an aspect of life. And humanity is an aspect of life. There's one for the fucking Instagram. Humanity is an aspect of life. The more you know. Seeing as how this pattern causes a re-establishing of what defines a thing and how that thing operates, in 2020 you need to consciously invest your resources as if each investment was a vote for the future you want. If you want a thing in the future, invest in having that thing now. Don't invest in something you don't want in the future. If you want something in the future, invest in that. It's a good thing to be conscious and be aware of those things, obviously, but again, none of this is profound. None of this is like groundbreaking. I expect more from a spiritual luminary, a personal development, whatever, revolutionary, the spiritual catalyst, whatever she is now. Wonder what her redefinition of herself will be for 2020. Sticking with the concept of karmic return, consider everything you do as a planting of a seed. Each seed is a vote for either a weed or a flower. 2020 is a time to look beyond 2020 at the big picture of your life and the big picture of human society on Earth, and to keep the vision you hold for both like a compass that keeps pointing north even in a storm. That is a very long, gratuitously long sentence that feels like it was written by a AI. It doesn't really have any... Like, what is that sentence? 2020 is a time to be now, to look at now, but also look at the future. It is a time to commit to long-term vision. Ask yourself, am I willing or even ready to redefine myself? If not, you need to lovingly resolve that resistance. See? It's self-love to need to redefine yourself. It's self-love to be ready to redefine yourself. It's self-love to ask yourself, and she says here, ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen when I redefine myself? Because, of course, that's the reason that people won't want to redefine themselves, because they're scared, right? It might be because they're happy with themselves. No, don't be silly. It's not that. It's not that. No one's happy. People aren't happy. Everyone's miserable, and Teal's the solution. What do I need to let go of on a mental, emotional, and physical level so I can commit my resources on all levels to what really matters? And what really matters is the organization. Jehovah's, no way. What really matters is... Having heard all of this information, how are you reacting to it? Did you only notice the negative? Is that for me? And no, I didn't. There were a few points in there where I said, you know what, fair enough, I think. And I'll include those in the video for good measure. I mean, the negative was glaringly obvious. It was staring you in the face right there, and there was just so much of it. It's hard not to pick up on it. But no, I didn't just notice the negative. Is the old pattern you're stuck in a perception of powerlessness? Bitch, please. You're not trying to powerlessness bullshit on me. Come on. In case you didn't pick up on it, 2020 is a wide open opportunity for the new. That's not condescending at all. Most people get stuck in a box that defines them. Most people live and die in that box. It's a bleak vision of life. They don't redefine themselves. You have redefined yourself as certain... This is what feels like one of the laziest last gasp attempt to convince anyone who's still reading this that what she's saying makes any sense at all. Listen to this. Most people get stuck in a box that defines them. Most people live and die in that box. They don't redefine themselves. You have defined yourself a certain way. 2020 is the peak year of the phase where the universe will break apart that unconscious box for you if you choose to not do that to yourself. 2020 is the crossroads of personal choice. Oh shit. If you don't do it, the universe will do it for you. But this is a time of personal choice. You're not a victim to the crossroads, but if you don't do it, it's gonna do it for you. What are you saying here? You're contradicting yourself and just coaxing on by as if you haven't. You can choose to go left or right, but left or right are the only two directions you can go in. You can even choose to not choose, but the universe is gonna do it for you. You can redefine yourself at any moment. Other people's definitions of you do not have to create your definition of yourself. Okay, right. This is the thing, is on the face of it, if you just read this thing, you would probably think, that's a very vague prediction. That's a load of rubbish that I can't use. That sounds like generally good advice, kind of. But when you put it into the greater context of what she's teaching, when you put it into the greater context of what she does, daily or whatever with the people that follow her, the workshops and all these kinds of things, it takes on an ominous tone, And with this kind of thing, if you're just watching the videos on YouTube, it's going to have one effect on you. It's going to affect you in another way. But if you're following her like she is the be-all and end-all, if you're going along to her workshops, if you're volunteering for her, if you're reading her books, if your whole life has been consumed by tealness, then this is going to mean something else for you. And I think she knows that in writing it. We have at last arrived at the final paragraph. In order to ride the tsunami of 2020, choose to get on the wave of redefining yourself and be proactive about it. And if all this does is terrify you, you aren't seeing the flip side of the coin. You aren't seeing the beauty of this energy. 2020 is going to be a scary year. Things are going to be really difficult. It's going to be like a tsunami, and whether you like it or not, it's going to hit you like a shit brick house. And then you're going to have to figure that out. But don't worry. Listen to my advice. I'll help you. I'll tell you the way out. Don't worry too much about whether or not the initial thing I said was based in fact or reality, or whether there's any real reason to believe me based on my word alone that what I just said makes any fucking sense at all. Just focus on the fact that I'm going to help you. This energy is beautiful. You can see the beauty in that man who decides that despite years spent in one career, he's going to switch his time and focus on what really fills him with passion. You can see it in that woman who has always been a doormat that decides to walk away. You can see it in those people who have always been fiercely independent and afraid of intimacy, deciding to really commit to an interdependent relationship. Yeah, fine. It is a good thing when people do better for themselves, but I don't really think that that's what she's been talking about in this post. It doesn't seem that way. Really, this has just been mentioning that and then talking about what? Floods, inflammation, energy, like frequency patterns, being in a new society, like... This is the first time she's talked about people leaving a job, I think. I could be wrong there. I've been at this a long time now. I've been sitting here nearly an hour. But yeah, So she goes on to say, you can see it in America deciding to abolish slavery. You can see it in women getting the vote. You can see it in that medical innovation. So it seems like what she's doing here is she's associating what she's just said, which is the sarcastic little rant I just went on there about how basically it's going to be shit, but don't worry, I got you. She's now associating I got you with all of these positive things. What I'm telling you now is all of these things, therefore do what I'm saying, right? That's what it seems like. You can see it in the medical innovation that changes our entire approach to illness. You can see it in the reshaping of politics. It's never too late to redefine yourself. You are never too old to redefine yourself. And if it is never too late to redefine yourself, it is never too late for the world. Okay, nice way to leave that off. It would be even nicer if it wasn't just an attempt to, I think, associate the fact that she's now primed people to expect that this year is going to be difficult with positive things like, hey, don't worry, it's going to be okay. It's a weird thing because you could just say, hey, look, this year's going to be good. Let's make this year good. You could, because she's got no reason to come out and say that this year's going to be bad, really. Unless you believe that she does have superpowers, at which point there's another conversation to be had. But really, let's be honest, chances of her having superpowers are pretty fucking slim. So why is she saying this? Why is she coming out with this stuff? Again, there's things to be said. Climate change, the political situation. Obviously, those are two things in particular which are concerning. And generally, I'm thinking, okay, right, maybe not. The way that this whole thing is written, though, is concerning to me just because what you've got is you've got an initial assertion, stokes fear, right? Then you've got chunks of word salad that I had to have a break from because I felt like my brain was melting. And then you've got at the end here her saying you need to be flexible. You need to just not worry about anything. You need to just throw all of the things that, and I say not worry about anything that you really value. Throw everything that you care about, that you value, that you love about yourself, that you like about yourself. A lot of that might have to go, honestly, because hey, it's a time to redefine yourself and find your inner authority. Let's see if she talks about the inner authority a little bit more at some point this year. How do we find out what that is? How do we find out what that sounds like? Yeah, it's a cake made of sandpaper, this, isn't it? It's a weird thing. But there you go. That was a long slog, wasn't it? That was an incredibly long video. But thank you for sticking with me. If you made it to the end, you're brilliant. If you did, stick a comment below and write the word cabbage and confuse everybody who didn't make it to the end. Then I'll know that you did. As I say, I'm not going to really make a habit of talking about Teal on the channel too much, but I'm not against it at the moment, you know. I think it's important to call certain things out. I think it's important to use a bit of critical analysis, and you know, no one's above scrutiny. No ideas are above scrutiny, and even if she doesn't like being challenged, even if there's people that are following her that wouldn't like her to be challenged, that doesn't mean she is above challenge. It doesn't mean the rules don't apply to her. So I think it's important to occasionally do something like this. I'll just see what takes my fancy, and I'll try to, you know, stave off the urge to just react to every piece of shit she puts out, because let's be honest, there's a lot of steaming stuff that I'm just like, no, did you really? What the? Because so much of it is nonsense, and then there's these really worrying parts that are just planted in the nonsense, which are the things people are going to stick to, because the nonsense, like a word salad kind of thing, will baffle you, and then you'll latch on to the one thing at the end that does make sense. Again, sorry if there's been much background noise in this video. Not really much I can do about that. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, then please subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, make sure you hit the like button as well. And if you want to become a patron like these wonderful people here, then you can do that by clicking the link in the description below. And you'll get access to a bunch of perks and occasionally some behind the scenes-y stuff. I do a live stream once a month where I talk about what's happened in the month and some behind the scenes stuff. And when we hit 15 patrons, which at the time of filming this, we're like 4 patrons away from 15, I'm going to start doing a podcast, and that podcast will be available exclusively to the $5 supporter tier level of patrons, and I'll just be talking about things that I can't necessarily say on a monetized channel. However, I do want to be clear that if there's something that I feel needs to be said that is important, I'm not going to put that behind payment. I'm going to make that available to everybody here on the channel. The podcast really is a chance for me and my co-host, and I will be joined by a co-host, to share our points of view a little bit more, speak from a little bit more of our personal point of view on cults, on the way that things work. And really it's with the view of encouraging a bit more critical thinking and a little bit more skepticism around these kinds of things. You can't have enough critical thought. You can't have enough skepticism, I don't think. Obviously, you have to balance it out with other things, but yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm really grateful that you stuck through it. And yeah, welcome to the new year. Let's keep on keeping on and fighting the good fight and all the rest of it. And I'll see you in the next one.